Hello, and thank you for joining me for this week's yoga session. This week we'll look at doing a series where we stay on the floor. We will do a little cobra and down dog just to get a well-balanced workout. We'll be emphasizing a little bit more doing some stretches for the legs and hips. And then at the end, if you'd like to stay for a few minutes and meditate, we'll close. And then you are welcome just to sit quietly on your own. And that way you can sit for just a minute or for 10 or 20 if you like. And we'll leave that closing open-ended today. So take a moment and make any adjustments you need to be comfortable. Reaching the sit bones back, drawing the flesh out from under the sit bones, tilting the pelvis forward, and then lifting through the waist, through the sternum, through the collarbones, broadening through the shoulders. The heart is lifting forward and up slightly as the shoulder blades sink down. We'll start off with a little breath awareness. First, notice how you're breathing without any effort or interference. How does your body want to breathe? Especially pay attention to what area of the lungs initiates the inhalation. As you breathe in, where does your mind go? Where does your breath go? To the chest, to the back, to the abdomen. And then redirect that into the lower areas. So as you breathe in, the chest is passive, and the belly, the sides, the low back expand to receive the air. And then either start the exhale or continue to breathe up into the mid-back, maybe even the upper back, but keep the chest still, the shoulders still. If you're new to breathing, this may take a few weeks or a few months to get the hang of, so don't try too hard. Just think about placing your attention in these areas as you initiate the inhale. Once you've addressed the mechanics of the breath, turn your attention to the rhythm. Allow the breath to become a little slower, more fluid, more wave-like. And as you continue this, begin relaxing your face, the forehead, the eyebrows, the eyelids, the eyeballs, the space behind, beneath, and around the eyes, the cheeks, the jaws, the lips, the tongue, the mouth. Part the lips, let the bottom jaw release, hanging slack-jawed. And then slowly, lazily, delicately begin to float your head a little to the left or to the right. Not leaning into a big stretch, just floating above the surface. And focus on your exhalation, stretching the exhale slightly into a sigh. And with each exhale, see if you can almost hypnotize yourself. Imagine and feel the head growing heavier and heavier. Two or three more breaths. And coming back to center. Now we'll work with a little bit stronger stretch in the neck. Be careful not to overdo this or your neck will actually get tighter overnight. So still doing it fairly gently. Take your chin and turn to your right. And take the chin to the right and down slightly, and then take your left shoulder, lift it up, roll it back, draw it down and away. So you got two variables, the head and the shoulder, and together by working and coordinating those two variables, we control the stretch in the neck. So think about the shoulder moving back and down and the head turning to the right. Adjust. So this is a pleasant, not unpleasant sensation. Take a breath or two. Then rotate your head to face straight ahead and drop your right ear towards your right shoulder. And you should feel the sensation, the stretching moves around a little bit more into the side of the neck. Now take your chin up and away, push your throat forward, lift the chin, and take that left shoulder back and down. See if you can bring the stretch around into the front of the neck, into the throat. Take your bottom jaw and extend the bottom jaw forward, jutting your jaw. And coming back to center, roll out both shoulders. Now turning your head to the left and take the right shoulder back and down. You can drop the hand to the floor if that helps. So the chin rotates towards your left shoulder, turning to the left and dropping slightly, and the right shoulder pulls back and down. Take a breath or two. Slowly rotate so that you're lowering the left ear towards the left shoulder, and the stretching sensation moves from the back into the side of the neck. Again, make sure that the sensations you're creating aren't unpleasant. And then lift your chin up and away. Jut your bottom jaw. And see if you can bring the stretch into the throat, into the right side of the throat. Taking that left shoulder back and down to help find the stretch and control it. Coming back to center, roll out the shoulders together and then individually. And now take your tip of your nose and trace an infinity sign. Start slow. Doesn't have to be big. It can be small or large, just whatever feels more natural to you. And then if that starts to feel easy, you can speed up a little bit. And then pause. Okay. Now, rather than trying to make it a perfect infinity sign, instead kind of do that, but focus on doing it in a way that feels relaxing to the neck and shoulders. So just floating your head like a bobble doll. Roll out the shoulders again. Try to feel the shoulder blades sliding around on the back and then opening into our first twist, leading with the right shoulder. Lift the shoulder, draw the shoulder blade around and down, and lift the chest forward and up. Cross the left hand over, turning your head, and then glancing behind you, looking to the right. Now in this position, breathe with a deep, complete breath. Start off the same, breathe into the belly and the low back, pelvic floor. Breathe into the mid back, upper back, and finish by breathing up into the chest and the shoulders. Oh. So it's called a complete breath or yogic breath. Take a couple more complete breaths. Coming back to center, beating with the left shoulder. Lift, draw the shoulder blade around and down, lift the chest forward and up. Cross the right hand over and then rotate. Again, turn your attention to the breath. Practicing with a deep, complete yogic breath. One more breath. Coming back to center. And then circling with the rib cage, first in one direction. And then reversing. And then rolling out the shoulders again. Opening into a side stretch. Take your right fingertips to the floor, and there's a tendency to collapse the spine and the ribs when you're doing a side stretch, so lift through the collarbones, and then float the left arm overhead. Think about taking not your hand, but your left shoulder and shoulder blade back, and your chest forward and up. And then flare the ribs, and if you need to, walk the right hand away a little bit. Don't let the pelvis tilt. If your left sit bone is getting light on the floor, push with the right hand in order to keep that left sit bone grounded. Two or three breaths. Come back to center, switch sides. Put the left fingertips to the floor, float the right arm, lift through the collarbones, flare the right rib cage, draw the shoulder and shoulder blade back, the chest forward and up. Walk the left hand away just enough to find a stretch. Push with the left hand, keep the right sit bone rooted, and then breathing into this position. Two or three breaths. Coming back to center, circling with the ribs. First one direction, and then the opposite. And coming back to center. So we tend to ignore the shoulders and chest, the upper torso on this movement. So this time we're going to really focus on circling, but with more action in the shoulder blades. First, we'll do a seated cat-cow. Drop your kidneys back, drop your chin, and then take your elbows, but more importantly, your shoulder blades and shoulders, and broaden the back. So the elbows sweep out and away to expand the back area. Now, bring the belly forward, lift the chest up, and with your shoulders pull back and down. The elbows will pull in slightly. Look up a little bit. Now do it with the breath. Breathe in as you look up, and then breathe out as you expand the back. And on the inhale, open the front of your body, so you're really stretching and opening the front on the inhale, and you're stretching and opening the back on the exhale. One more time. This is something you can do when you're doing a long drive, holding onto the steering wheel. You can do the same action, pulling on the steering wheel a little bit, and then opening the chest, pulling your chest forward and up on the inhale, and then sinking your kidneys back into the seat, flaring the elbows out, opening the back on the exhale, and a couple times like that can help you when you're driving to prevent from seizing up a little bit. Now, see if you can integrate that into a full circle. So start by inhaling, bring the belly forward, lift the chest up, roll the shoulders back, and then on the exhale, rather than going straight back, take your rib cage to the right and then back. Shoulders come forward and up. Then take your rib cage to the left and forward and open the chest, the shoulders drawing back and down. So we're now circling, but try and focus on the shoulders and the shoulder blades. So remember, as the chest comes forward and up, the shoulders go back and down. Reverse directions. And then roll out the shoulders. Seated forward bend. Now, if your hamstrings are a little tight, you can roll up a blanket, and if you need to, you can roll it up thicker. And little support under the knees will help so that you can get your spine to vertical. If your legs are really tight and you're looking like this, that's not good for the back. So you want to make sure that our pelvis is tilted forward. If you don't have a blanket to put under your knees, just bend your knees and keep them bent on your own. Now those of you who have long hamstrings and are comfortable straightening the legs while keeping the low back nice and straight and vertical, that's fine. Start with Dandasana. Feet hip width. Rotate internally with the feet until the outer edges of the feet are perpendicular. Spread the toes. Place your hands on the floor either side of your hips. Now, using your hands as little as possible, but as much as necessary to maintain the length of your spine. If you start collapsing, use your arms more to help lift. Draw the belly forward, lift the chest up, roll the shoulders back and down. And then notice what fatigues first. A large part of yoga is the attitude we bring to it. And quite often, when we feel a muscle fatiguing, we get discouraged rather than recognizing that that is the very muscle that has the most benefit from yoga. It's a muscle that is weak and needs to be strengthened. That's why it's fatiguing before the other muscles. So when you identify a muscle that is starting to feel like it's getting a little weak to you, that's exactly where you want to work. 2 or 3 more breaths. One more breath. And then lean into a gentle hamstring stretch, a forward bend. Now, if you feel anything in the back of the knees, that is not good. Those are ligaments and tendons and connective tissue that we don't want to be stretching. So if the sensation is behind the knees, that's when you roll up a blanket and put under the knees, or just bend the knees and keep them bent. It's better to have support though if you have something handy. Then you'll be able to lean forward a little bit further, and when you lean forward further, you'll feel a stretch, but now the stretch will be a little higher up in the muscle and in the belly of the muscle, not the ligaments behind the knee. On the inhale, try to lengthen the front of your body. Try and lift the sternum away from the pubic bone. On the exhale, take your belly forward, your navel forward. Lengthening the spine as you breathe in, leaning into the stretch as you breathe out. Now those of you that don't need a blanket, you're welcome to do this with legs straight, as long as you're feeling the stretch in the muscle. Couple more breaths. And coming back up. Now, take your right foot and bring it in close to the groin. Keep the left leg straight. And we want to try and get the left leg lined up with the rotation of the pelvis. And the pelvis is going to be a little bit facing to the right of the left leg. So move your right foot to the right 3 or 4 inches, and then swing the left leg across so that it is directly in front of you. Now lift and extend, leaning in towards the left leg. The base of your rib cage is going to try and displace to the right. So take the base of your rib cage and move it to the left, and then try to exaggerate lengthening the left side of the rib cage. Your hands can grab your knee, your calf, your ankle, your foot, wherever you're comfortable. Again, if you're feeling anything behind the knee, bend the knee enough that you keep the stretch where it needs to be. Complete breath. Use the exhale to lean in a little deeper. 2 or 3 more breaths. One more breath. And then switch sides. Extend the right leg. Draw the left heel in. Move your left foot to the left. Swing the right leg in front of you. Lift, extend, and then leaning in again, keeping the right knee bent if you need to. Try to move the base of the rib cage to the right and lengthen through the right side of the torso. And then focus on a nice deep, complete breath. Two or 3 more breaths. And coming back up. Extend both legs, bounce and roll. Butterfly. So bring your left heel in close to the sternum, pubic bone. Bring the right foot in. And then if you can lift the hips and push your hips forward and set them down again, fine. We don't want to feel any discomfort or awkwardness in the knee joint or the hips. So if you need to, walk your feet further away from you. And grabbing your feet, and then lifting your chest, and taking your knees down, and lifting the chest forward and up. If you can hold onto your feet and put your elbows on the shin bones, you can use your elbows to push down on the shins to get a little bit more opening. Remember, this is supposed to feel pleasant or neutral, not unpleasant. Leaning forward as you're able to. Do a little active isolated and PNF stretching now. So come back up. Take your left hand behind you and out to the side a little bit. And push down with that hand to push your chest forward slightly. And then with your right hand, put it on the right knee. Now begin to lift your knee and push the knee into the hand and slowly let the knee win. So the hand is pushing down, but the knee is overpowering it so that the knee is lifting, even though the hand is pushing. Now let the hand begin to win. So the knee is still pushing up, but the hand is pushing down more firmly. When you hit resistance in the hip socket, reverse directions again. Begin lifting, and then working your way back down. Lifting, and then releasing back down. A couple more times. And then come back to center. Notice if the right leg feels a little bit more open. If it does, that's a good sign. That meant that the stretch was effective for you. Switch sides. Take your right hand out to the side and slightly behind, and left hand on the knee. Use your right hand to push your chest forward and up, and then isometric. Push the knee into the hand into the knee. And then PNF, slowly let the knee win, and then let the hand win. Go back and forth. Two or three more times. And then come back to center, and then with your hands lift and drop the knees a few times. And then grab your feet and try one more time, the classic butterfly. Pull on your feet in order to lift the chest forward and up. Coming forward. When you meet resistance, pause. Then walk your sit bones, still leaning forward, but walk your sit bones back an inch or two. So roll to the left, reach the right sit bone back. Roll to the right, reach the left sit bone back. And then lean in again. Make sure your low back feels okay. And the sacrum. One more time. Walk your hips back an inch. Lean forward. Notice how the stretch changes each time we reposition the hips. The stretch gets a little easier or more difficult, or shifts to a different area. And again, walk your hips back an inch and lean forward again. 3 or 4 breaths. This is our final position. Try to lengthen the spine, especially the front of the chest, lifting up and away from the pubic bone. And then easing back up, and then lift your knees with your hands, straighten out one leg and then the other, and then bounce and roll. Next, we'll work with a quadricep stretch while we let those areas rest. So you're going to roll your hips and roll your weight to the left until you can bring the right foot behind you. And then ideally, the heel is close to the hip, so not way out to the side. And the toes point straight back, so it's the top of the foot that's on the floor. For some people, that'll be uncomfortable. If you put a folded blanket underneath the arch of your foot, that will take some of the pressure off. We're looking for a healthy stretch in the belly of the muscle, and what we're watching out and guarding against is feeling any strong sensations, especially burning or searing, that get close to the knee. So we want a gentle, broad sensation through the belly of the muscle. So our target is the right quadricep, front of the right thigh. Now, if you lean to the left, this will get a little easier. If you kind of shift your weight to the right and then start to lean back a little bit, it'll get more intense. So if you are not getting enough stretch, you can drop back onto your left elbow. If that turns out to still be too easy, you can lower yourself down onto the left shoulder. If that's too easy, you can lean over onto your right shoulder. Whatever position you choose, what's important is that you're comfortable, that you're getting a little stretch, but it feels pleasant. Now, stretch the exhale. Take a deep breath and drop the exhale, but also drop any mental resistance to the stretch. Just a letting go, a softening. The muscle tightens, back off. If the muscle relaxes, work your way deeper. 5 or 6 more breaths. And the most important muscle groups to strengthen and stretch. Sitting in chairs is something that makes these muscles tight and weak. Couple more breaths. To release, you roll your weight to the left and release the right leg back out in front of you. Come back up to Dandasana. Then continue to roll your weight to the right and take the left leg back. Again, keep the heel in close to your hip. Put a roll blanket underneath your left ankle if you need to. Now remember, if it gets too easy, work your way back to your left elbow or to your right elbow or to your right shoulder. If that's too easy, then roll over onto your left shoulder. Going to be here a while, so it's better to start off gently and then work your way deeper rather than starting off deep and having to back off. Take a deep breath and then make full use of your exhale. Relaxing, melting, softening. Five or 6 or 7 more breaths, stretching the exhale into a sigh. Make use of each exhale. To let go. Two or 3 more breaths. When you're finished, roll to the right, release the left leg, and then lay back. Bring your knees into your chest, rock side to side. side, come back to sitting. Now taking your feet wide and reach through the heels, pull the toes towards you. And then if you want to go a little bit wider, use your hands behind you, lift the hips, push your hips forward and slide the feet apart. Now you can either keep your hands behind you and use them to help lift, roll the shoulders back and down, chest forward and up, or you can grab your legs and do the same thing, or you can reach in front. But in all three cases, wherever your hands end up, use your hands to help maintain the length of the core. As you work your way forward a little bit, just notice how far forward you come before you meet resistance. And then notice where the resistance is, and if it's in this area, the ligaments behind the knee, bend both knees a little bit. Walk your heels in an inch closer to you, and with the knees bent, lean forward. Now, come back to vertical, and then we're going to rotate from the navel to your left. Then you're going to lean out over the left leg. Don't lose awareness of the right leg though. Spread the toes, keep the right leg active even as you're leaning to the left. Take a breath or two. Switching sides. Come back to vertical and then rotate your navel to the right and then leaning to the right. The right hand can rest on the floor and support you. And then with your left hand you reach for the knee, for the calf, for the foot. Keep the left leg strong and active. Keep awareness in the left leg as well as the right. Take a breath or two. And come back to center. Now we'll throw in a side stretch. So take your hands, put them on the floor in front of you, walk them forward a little bit. And then take your left hand and walk it to the right and forward so that your left shoulder comes forward a little bit more, not much, just an inch. And then imagine gluing your hand to the floor and then begin to lean as if you're trying to touch your head to your left foot without letting the left hand slip. Then with your right arm, reach out overhead and reach out over the toes. Then try to open your chest towards the ceiling, taking the right shoulder back. Make both legs strong, press down into the floor with both legs. Create a solid foundation to work from. 2 or 3 breaths. Upright. Hold both hands forward. Then take your right hand and walk it to the left a few inches, forward just an inch or 2. Glue your right hand to the floor and take the left arm and head. And first take your head towards your right foot. And then with the arm extend out over your head. Draw that left shoulder back. Opening your chest as if you're trying to open the chest to the ceiling. Again, keep both legs strong and active. Two or 3 breaths. Come back to center. Put your hands behind you, push your hips forward, slide your legs wide. And then one more time, just leaning straight forward. Notice if you've loosened up at all, if you're a little more comfortable here. 2 or 3 breaths. Move one foot in an inch, and then move the other foot in an inch, and then walk them back together. And then bounce your knees and roll your feet. Next we'll work with the back roll, and then we'll do some down dogs and cobra, work a little harder. Take your blanket, fold it long and thin, roll from one edge towards the other, creating a nice tight roll. Remember, if you unroll the blanket, it gets easier. If you roll it up, it gets harder. If you don't have a blanket, you can do the same thing with your sticky mat. Place the roller underneath your shoulders. Extend the arms out overhead, or interlace the fingers behind your neck. And if you can't relax comfortably, unroll your blanket enough that you can. Now in this position, breathe and relax. 4 or 5 breaths. Occasionally, reposition by lifting your hips, pushing yourself over the roller an inch, setting the hips down, relaxing again into the new position. Each time you reposition, the roller should work its way closer to the hips. In each new position, take a few breaths to relax before moving again. It's the relaxing into the new position that's important, and that takes time, doesn't happen immediately. For 3 more minutes. If you finish a little early, go back and start over. Couple more minutes. As you finish, just go back to a favorite spot. 10 or 15 more breaths, stretching each exhale. When you're finished, lift your hips, pull the blanket out from under you, hug both knees, rock side to side. Take a moment for abdominal core strengthening. Interlace your fingers behind the base of your neck. Be careful not to pull on the neck itself. The hands are just supporting the head. Press your kidneys down. Try to draw the navel down towards the floor and up under the rib cage. And then bring your right elbow and left knee towards each other a little bit. Now don't try to touch the knee. Just lift and twist until you feel resistance. And then try to push into the resistance just the right amount that it feels like a healthy contraction.
Come down, arch the back a little, breathe in. Press the kidneys into the floor, pull the navel up under the rib cage, and lift and twist to the opposite side. Now, on your own, with your own breathing, on the exhale, lift and twist. If you can touch the elbow to the knee easily, try and bring the elbow past the knee. Bring the knee towards your forehead. What's important isn't where your elbow and knee end up. What's important is that you're getting just the right amount of action. Not struggling, not straining, but on the other hand, working hard enough that you're getting a good workout and getting some benefit. One more time, either side. And then hug your knees and rest for a breath or two. Next, we're going to focus on working the transverse, which are the abdominal muscles that run horizontally, and then internal, external obliques, which run diagonally, but primarily transverse. These muscle groups don't get a lot of work. So to access them, we're going to use a twist, and we're going to keep the shoulders anchored. Take your arms out horizontal, press your palms down, keep your shoulders glued to the floor. If either shoulder starts to lift off the floor, it means you've gone too far. When you're ready, take your knees to the left, turn your head to the right, keep the right shoulder on the floor. Take the knees over just enough that this becomes a little challenging. Then come back to center slowly, breathe in, and take your knees to the opposite side. Turn your head away, keep the shoulder glued to the floor. Continue with your breath, coming to center on the inhale, rotating to the opposite side on the exhale. If you spread the knees apart, this will be easier. If you keep your knees touching each other, it'll be more challenging. The slower you start to lift, so when you get ready to come back to center, the first inch that you lift, if you do that slowly, you'll also get a better workout. Your next rotation, hold. And then relax into your twist. You grab your knee and turn away. Think about expanding and stretching now rather than working. If that's not enough stretch, you can straighten the bottom leg and cross the top knee over to the floor. Now breathe with a complete breath, 2 or 3 breaths. One more breath. Coming back to center. Go to the opposite side. Once again, focus on a complete breath. Three or 4 breaths. And hug both knees. Coming onto your stomach now for cobra. We'll do a couple cobras and a couple down dogs, and then that'll be our last work for the class. And we'll finish with pigeon and then shavasana. Start with your hands well behind the shoulders, wrists under the elbows. Touch the tops of your feet to the floor. Press them down until the knees lift, and touch your forehead to the floor. Shrug the shoulders, lift the shoulders, squeeze the shoulder blades together, draw them down the back, reach the chest forward. Focus not on how high you're lifting, but on the quality of the engagement in the back muscles. Pressing down with the feet helps to protect the low back. Try to reach the chest forward, roll the shoulders back. Oh. Using your back muscles to lift rather than your hands. Couple more breaths. Downward facing dog. Spread your fingers wide, middle finger pointing straight ahead. Lifting the hips, reaching the hips up and back. Keep the knees bent at first. Pull the chest through. Float the shoulder blades away from your feet. Pull the chest towards your feet. Spiral the arms, spiral the legs. Five or six breaths. And another cobra. Two or three breaths. If you need a little longer, just hold. Otherwise, downward facing dog. Two or three breaths. This will be our last work for the class. If you need more time, stay. Otherwise, when you decide you're ready to slow down, bring the right knee forward. Walk the left leg back, pigeon pose. Adjust by moving your back leg. Move your left leg to the left and forward, the stretch diminishes. Slide it back into the right, and the stretch grows deeper. Always make sure you keep any sensation out of the knee joint. Breathing deep, stretching the exhale. Four or five breaths. Stretching the exhale into a sigh. Take a breath or two, then switch sides. Start with a gentle stretch. Make sure you're comfortable before you shift your focus to relaxing. Breathing deep, stretching the exhale into a sigh. Three or four more breaths, stretching the exhalation. Now coming into Shavasana. Laying flat on your back. And then either bend the knees and keep them bent, or if you have a chair, you can put your legs on the seat of a chair, or roll a blanket underneath your knees or your neck. If you're comfortable, classic Shavasana, the legs are extended, hip width or a few inches wider than the hips, symmetrical. The back of the neck stays long. Shoulder blades draw together and down the back slightly so the chest is lifted and open. Arms out to the sides, palms turned up. In Shavasana, we want to allow the chest to become still and the breath to move deeper into the belly, pelvic floor, and kidneys. At any point, if your back feels like it's starting to tighten, bend the knees and keep them bent. Relax your face, your neck, your shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers. Take a deeper breath. Let it all fall away. The feet, the ankles, the calves, the knees, the thighs, the hips, the buttocks. Take a deeper breath. Let the arms and the legs fall away, distant, remote, and heavy. The low back, the belly, the kidneys, the ribs, the chest, the shoulders, the back of the neck, and soften the throat. lips, the tongue, the mouth. The cheeks, the eyeballs, especially the area behind, beneath, and around the eyes. Imagine your eyeballs melting into the back of your head. The eyelids, the eyebrows, the forehead. Temples soft and hollow. Scalp and the crown. Letting the body fall away, remote and distant. And instead focus on your breath, rising and falling. Allowing the breath to become more fluid, more wave-like. And slowly, lazily, yawning, and then organically, spendiculating, stretching, arching, twisting. Yes. And roll to one side. When you're comfortable, push up to a comfortable seated position. Take just a moment to get comfortable. Once again, adjusting your foundation, floating up through the waist and only then through the chest and shoulders. If you would like to meditate on your own for a few minutes, I invite you, after we close, just to stay seated on your own and meditate for a few minutes or longer if you like. And for those of you that need to finish or are ready to finish, bring your hands together over your heart. Thank you for coming. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope you're doing well. And feel free to email me or call anytime if you want to visit. Thank you. Namaste.